Hi, Phyllis here from southernfrugal.com. It's Monday morning and we're getting ready to make some Moravian cookies. And I have made some over the weekend with a recipe that I didn't care for, so we're not going to use that. We're going to use another recipe. Now, I think this might be original. I'm not sure, but I think it might be. And when I say original, I'm talking about a recipe from the 1800s, I think. Of course, they would have made a lot more, so this recipe's just been pared down, for a regular family, what they might make. Now, the Moravian cookies, everything is to do with technique in rolling out the cookies. And the cookies do not have any egg in them, and really not very much fat. It's just going to be Crisco melted. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, the first thing that we need is 1 1/4 cups of just all-purpose flour. And here it is. Now to this we're going to add, and I'm just going to try to name them off here, half a teaspoon of salt. I'll just name them, and then because I'm going to give this in the description anyway. So it's salt, nutmeg, allspice, ground cloves, cinnamon, ginger, and just a pinch of pepper. Now, I hope you can see that. There's a little teeny pinch of red cayenne pepper. Okay, so I'm going to give you the recipe for the amounts on the spices. Alright, so 1 1/4 cups of sifted all-purpose flour. Now, you sift the flour and then measure it. Okay, so 1 1/4 cups. So what I'm going to do is just dump my spices and my salt right into the flour. And just mix that around a little bit. Okay, already smells good. Alright, so that's pretty much mixed around. Now, you'll need 3 tablespoons of melted Crisco or some type of shortening. Now, the other recipe that I didn't particularly care for called for butter, and I'm very sure the original recipe probably called for lard. So the closest thing I've got to that is going to be the Crisco, and this recipe actually listed it as Crisco. Alright, so we're going to dump that in our bowl, and it's still pretty warm. I melted it in the microwave. Alright, now to this, I'm going to add 1/3 cup of molasses, and that would just be like grandma molasses. You can get that in any grocery store. So I'm going to dump that in. Okay, now to this mixture I'm going to add 2 tablespoons dark brown sugar, not light brown, dark brown. 2 tablespoons right into this molasses and Crisco mixture, and just mix that up. Now these cookies are very simple to mix up and calls for very simple ingredients. However, the technique of actually making these very thin little cookies is quite another story. Alright, now to this mixture of molasses, brown sugar, and Crisco, I'm going to add the flour, and I'm going to add about half of it to start with. Now you notice there are no eggs whatsoever in this. It's very hard to mix up. Alright, now we're going to add the rest of our flour. And just keep mashing it down with your spatula. Now these cookies have quite a history on them, and you can order them already made. I think it's called Mrs. Haynes Moravian Cookies. You can look that up on the internet and order them from North Carolina. And they're very, very thin and very crispy, and they really just kind of melt in your mouth. Now, to me, if you use the butter, they don't really actually melt in your mouth. They're a little harder. So better to use Crisco, I think. All right, so we kind of got this together. All right, now I'm going to show you those I made this weekend, just to give you an idea. All right, be right back. Now, my husband really actually liked these, but I remembered getting these cookies from up in North Carolina, and I remembered them actually being a little thinner. So there's what they look like. Now, this recipe had an egg yolk in it, and it also called for butter, which I really don't think was the original recipe. Let me show you how they look. See, they're not quite as crispy as I remember those we got up in North Carolina. So anyway, we're going to do this other recipe. They are delicious though, even the ones that weren't as crispy, or that were too crispy, maybe that's the right word. Alright, this is very hard to get all this together because you really don't have anything but the molasses and the Crisco melted even. Alright, so now we're going to have to pull this together with our hands, fingers. Get a workable dough here. And of course it's going to be very sticky. So I've got me another little small bowl of flour, and I'm going to put that in as necessary. Now, when they make these in North Carolina, they actually have women that hand roll them, and some of those women have been doing it for years and years, and they do make it look so simple, but I can tell you it is not simple. So you want to just knead this dough just a little bit, using whatever flour is necessary so that you don't, so that it won't stick to your hands. So you don't have to knead it long, just to make it more pliable. Yeah, there's a video on YouTube showing those ladies rolling out these cookies. And when you first look at the video, boy, you think, oh, well, I can do that. Well, I can tell you it's not nearly as easy as they make it look. And again, just keep adding flour till the dough gets to where it does not stick to your fingers. All right, that looks about right to me. All right, now I'm going to divide this in half. See how it's not sticking to my hands now? It's all together. All right, so I'm going to divide that in half. And then I'm going to just set this one aside. And now we're ready to start rolling out these cookies. Now, some of the recipes called for, let me move this stuff out of the way, called for rolling them between parchment paper, and some called for rolling it between wax paper. And I really think this recipe I've just given you is probably going to be the best one, because I don't think they had parchment paper available in stores, and because they said wax paper, that's what made me think this is a much older recipe. All right. just going to take a piece of wax paper and I'm going to put another one on top of it in just a minute. So I'm going to put a little flour on it, kind of rub it out, and now I'm going to take my dough and somewhat mash it out into a long cylinder type thing. Now so far everything's been very easy, but now it's getting ready to get hard. So put a little flour on there again. And I'm ready to put my next layer of wax paper. Now, in the factory where they make these, they don't use any wax paper. They just roll them out on I think a cloth covered board. Now what we're looking for is less than 1/16 of an inch. Less than. I'll just turn my wax paper around. And one lady said that she rolled hers out until she could see the bottom of the board that she was rolling them out on. So that tells you how thin they need to be. Now, in order to work with them being this thin, you have to put them in the freezer, because otherwise you won't be able to get them off the wax paper at all. See, it's very, very hard to get it off the paper. And I'll tell you that the last ones, the ones I made this weekend, I used the parchment paper. And it was very difficult. Very, very difficult. And these are a very unique cookie. And people in North Carolina, and I think in Pennsylvania too, actually make these and give them as gifts at Christmas time. Alright, now see how difficult that was even to get off the wax paper. Now I'm going to put a little more flour on them. Kind of smooth that out. Roll them a little more. Now I watched a video with Martha Stewart making Moravian cookies. And I'll have to say, I never saw them made that way, ever. But she actually cooked them in the cookie pan without cutting them out. And then after they got done, then she cut them out and zipped them off the pan real quick, and I would think you'd have a lot of waste doing them that way. Alright, I think we have got these thin enough now. And what I'm going to do, you can sort of tell by feeling of it whether it's super thin or not. Alright, now, the next step is to put these in the freezer. So I'm just going to put them on the clean cookie sheet and put them in my refrigerator freezer, and then we're going to cut them out. Alright, so we'll be back in about probably 20 minutes or so. Okay, I have taken my cookies out of the freezer now, and they're somewhat frozen. I actually left them in there about 30 minutes. Now, you want to lightly grease. Hopefully you've got a stainless steel baking pan, because the times for cooking them and the temperature of the oven are based on stainless steel baking sheets. And you can find a link on where you can get those on my website, and I'm going to actually have a page dedicated on my website to the stainless steel pans. Alright, you need a cookie cutter. In my case, I'm using a little biscuit cutter. It's got the little serrated edges, 2 inches. So you want to cut these out really fast and just slightly twist them, because they're going to thaw out really quick. Alright, now we're going to see if we can get them off this. This is the hard part. Alright. So what I'm going to do is just take up the extra, because you can actually roll this out again. And again, this whole process is so that you can make a very super thin cookie. Now, I can already tell you, these are going to have to go back in the freezer real quick. Let's see if I can get all this off. It's very, very difficult. This is the really super hard part about making these cookies. Just going to peel that extra out of there. And you don't really have to space these on the cookie sheets because they really don't expand. Alright, working on it, working on it. Very, very hard to do. And those ladies up in North Carolina that make these, I mean, they are experts. They actually pick theirs up. You know, they cut them out and put them over in their hand. They do it really, really fast. Alright, we're about there. Cut that one a little more. And I can tell you, using the parchment paper, it's a lot harder to do. So when you make these at Christmas time, one thing's for sure, the people who get them are getting a cookie that was very, very hard to make. Very hard. Alright, we're just about through. Alright. Now we're going to see, actually what we're going to do is put these back in the freezer for another 10 or 15 minutes, just so we can get them off. Make sure all of them are okay. Alright. There's a little place. Alright, and see, I have made them so they'll fit right on the cookie sheet. So this cookie sheet's not really greased yet. I'm going to put them right back on. And they're going to go right back in the freezer for just a few minutes to harden up so they'll peel right off. Alright, so when that happens, we'll be back. Okay, here are the cookies and they're all done. And I'm just going to slightly separate any that went together with my little knife while they're hot. And again, we bake these. I bake these in my oven on a stainless steel pan for exactly 10 minutes. Now, if you've got a darker pan, they're going to cook a lot faster and you'll have to really watch them. Really watch them because they will burn. Okay, so we're going to just let these finish cooling on the pan because we want them super crispy. So just let them cool right on the pan and we'll be back. Alright, we are back and ready to do our next group of cookies. Now these, because I put them on a pan that was really cold, I'm having a much easier time getting them apart. And again, all this that I'm pulling off, you can re-roll it. It doesn't hurt it at all to re-roll it. Alright, so they're already thawing out a little bit, so I've got to be really fast with this. What I'm going to do then is just flip them right over on the cookie sheet and then peel the wax paper off the other side of them. I've got my microwave on, and if you hear that in the background, we're fixing our lunch. We're having spaghetti that was frozen, and I think I did a video on that, on how to freeze that leftover spaghetti. It works really, really well. Alright, we're going to go very quickly now. Well, first of all, I'm going to take those cookies off the sheet because they're cooled now. Get a spatula real quick. Oops, sorry. Alright, now they'll just come off real quick. See how thin they are? They're just paper thin. And I just really think these are like gourmet cookies. You want to be absolutely sure you let them almost get completely cooled on the pan. You can actually just really pick them up. Alright, right on the same pan that's still got some of the grease on it. Actually just flip those over right on the sheet and then just peel that wax paper off just as quickly as you can. And it usually works better if you peel it back sort of close to it, almost like you're rolling it up. These will probably be the hardest cookies you've ever made, or the hardest to make cookies you've ever made. And once you get them on that cookie sheet, you're home free then. Alright, so any little flour that you see, I'm just kind of brush that off a little bit, although it's going to kind of go away. Alright, we're ready to put these in the oven. I'm going to move this one. Whoops, no way to move it. And they're, separate them just a little bit, kind of patch it up. Alright, this is going to work. Now they're very, very thin. Alright, we're going to bake it 350 degrees for about 10 minutes in my oven. Now if you're, again, depending on your oven, you'll want to keep a real close watch on them because they will burn if you're using a darker type pan. Alright, when these get done we'll be back, but first I'm going to taste one of these little cookies. See how super thin it is? And they just melt in your mouth. They are delicious. No eggs in it, and only 3 tablespoons of Crisco. Alright, when these get done, we'll be back. Okay, we are back, and this is the third and final rolling out of the cookies. Now I'm using my same wax paper. Just sprinkle a little bit of flour on it. Now again, you don't have to worry about what you have left over. They re-roll very easily. Actually, you can roll out those little tidbits that were left easier than you do the other. So I'm going to just sort of get it in an oblong shape. Mash it out with my fingers. Put a little flour on the top of it. Put my wax paper on top. Start rolling from the middle. And again, you want to try to get them less than 1/16 of an inch thick. That's what you're looking for. So you're going to end up with about 36 cookies. Pull that back now. And I'm pulling it back because I'm going to put a little more flour on it. And just mash that flour all around. What you're looking for is the thinnest possible thickness that you can roll these out and still be able to somehow get them off the wax paper. The thinner the better. And it does take a lot of work to do this. A lot of smart work, let's put it that way. And putting them back in the freezer is really the only way that you can get them off the wax paper. Now if you try to roll them out with just flour on a board, I'm afraid you're going to be real disappointed and very discouraged because it's almost impossible to do. Those ladies that do the cookies up in North Carolina have had many, many years of experience at doing it. And they are good the way they do it. But until you've got that kind of experience, it just becomes impossible to get them placed back on the cookie sheet. All right, I'm going to put just a teeny bit more flour on there. Rub it all around. Actually use the brush to kind of rub it around. I'm going to cut these out. Now this will make about 36 cookies. And you can cut them in any shape that you want to cut them in. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and take this up, the extra. And what makes it so difficult is the fact that you have got the molasses in the cookie dough, but that's where you get a lot of the taste from, is the molasses and the brown sugar. And again, this is much easier to come up if it's frozen. I was just going to try to do it this time without freezing them if I could and get this extra up, because I want to make more cookies, because I want it to come out so that they have enough for the cookie sheet. I'll go ahead and take that one out too, because it's too thin on one side. Now I finally had to put mine in the big freezer, which is colder than my refrigerator freezer. And by the way, my husband did get the garden dug up, and he also got his cookies on Saturday, but I thought I could make better cookies for the video than what I made on Saturday. Alright. Now I'm going to try to roll some more out on this one end here, and maybe on the side. So again, I'm just going to put my wax paper down and roll this end out. And I'm doing this so I'll have enough on the cookie sheet. Again, just as thin as you can possibly get them. That's what you're looking for. All right, take that up again now. Sprinkle a little flour on it. Brush it around a little bit. So I've got 6. And it really does, for what reason I don't know, work a lot better with just wax paper than it does parchment paper. Again, you can just keep re-rolling this over and over again. Alright, I think we got enough to make 2 more cookies, hopefully. Roll this out. Maybe I'll do it right here. A little more flour. Yeah. All right, so I'm get hopefully 2 more. Okay, there are the cookies. All right. So there's our only waste right there. I think that's pretty good. All right, we're going to get the other cookies out. All right, here's the next batch, and I'm just going to leave them on the cookie sheet until they cool. They'll just be barely warm when I take them off, and they'll come right up. And these cookies are going in the freezer. And see, I know they'll fit on my cookie pan because I'm just going to flip them over once they've gotten in the freezer and get really hard, then I'll flip them over. All right, we'll be back. Okay, all the cookies have completed cooking, and I think I had about 36, maybe a little more. These are still on the pan because we're letting that pan cool, and then they'll just pop right off. And I wanted to show you. See how super thin they are? Now watch this. Wait a minute. See? They're really thin and super, super crispy. All right, so here you have it, Moravian spice cookies. All right, we will see y'all next time.